So, this month's Transformers lore videos are going to be a bit weird. In fact, I wasn't really originally planning on doing Transformer lore videos this month, just because my life is so hectic, what with the move to Japan and all that. But I decided I can at least try to get some shorter Transformers lore videos out there. So, you are in this zone of July, and I believe August 1st will also fall into this category of Transformers lore videos that I'm sort of making, off the cuff. Because I really can't afford the time to spend working on in-depth Transformers lore videos and have them out on the scheduled time. But the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was the greatest disaster that happened to Earth in the first IDW Hasbro universe, and that would be the Decepticon occupation of Earth. There are two major disasters that hit Earth during the first IDW universe. First, the largest disaster was the Decepticon occupation of Earth. The second largest was the destruction of Nanjiao, which we'll get into in the next episode of Transformers lore. But for the Decepticon occupation of Earth, it happened about late 2008, early 2009, I believe. If that's wrong, I'll put it in the comments, but I think it was late 2008, it's late 2008, early 2009. It spanned for over a year. What had happened was, the Decepticons had got their hand on combiner technology, they had got their hand on a lot more advanced technology, they created the Insecticons, they managed to create Devastator, and throughout the IDW universe, the Decepticons are really trying to replicate combiner technology, which had been lost millions of years ago when the scientist Jhiaxus first created a combiner, Monstructor. But the combiners were lost to history in 2006 or 2007. One of those years, I think it's 2007. Or is the occupation 2007 to 2008? I'll put a proper timeline in the comments or in the description. But at some point they got their hands on Monstructor, and Monstructor was the first combiner. They managed to reverse engineer it. Bada bing, bada boom, you got Devastator. So the Decepticons, throughout the entire IDW universe, in the beginning at least, the combiners were like a really sought after technology because they thought whoever controlled the combiners could have a upper hand in the war. They get Devastator. So Megatron and the Decepticons sort of lure Optimus Prime and the Autobots to Earth again after they had already abandoned Earth. Long story. There were some more interesting things going out in space that both the Autobots and the Decepticons cared more about. But they lured the Autobots to Earth, or back to Earth again, and they sort of staged this false information that Starscream and Megatron were having an argument, and that if the Autobots wanted to strike and wipe out the Decepticons, now would be the time, because the Decepticons were fragmented between Starscream and Megatron. The person who reported this information was Mirage, but ultimately this information came from Sunstreaker. So the Autobots go over to find the Decepticons, where they find out Megatron and Starscream are not fighting. In fact, the Decepticons are getting along pretty fine because they have Devastator on their side. With Devastator, the Decepticons on Earth beat the crap out of the Autobots on Earth. And they create a space bridge, which was also forbidden technology that they hadn't reached until then. At least for the modern Cybertronians. There were space bridges before, but that was back during older history than the Transformers we know were alive. But they got space bridge technology from Jhiaxus. It's a long story. This is part of a massive universe. But they unveiled their space bridge and they banished the Autobots to Cybertron, which, by the way, Cybertron is abandoned, dead, no energy. It's just inhabited by a race of the Insecticon swarm. So the Autobots get banished off Earth into Cybertron. And now the Decepticons have full reign over Earth. At the same time, something called the Surge takes place. Because in the IDW universe, the Transformers are fighting across the galaxy. You're kept aware of the fact that there is fighting going on all these different planets and not just Earth. So Megatron orders the Surge to happen, in which all the Decepticons use their momentum they got from defeating Optimus Prime. The Autobots aren't really that organized now, and they launch an offensive across the galaxy. And the Surge is worth its own video, But we're focusing on what happens on Earth. On Earth, the Decepticons, they first roll up into Manhattan, they roll up into New York City, and then they launch their attack there. They use New York City as their base of operations for the occupation, because they argue that New York City is like what the humans consider to be like the greatest city on Earth or whatever. But they occupy New York City. The U.S. military tries to stop them for a while, but they really aren't very effective. There's one scene where Soundwave sends out Frenzy, and in the IDW universe, Frenzy can emit such loud sonic sounds that it makes everyone in the radius go insane. So I think a whole platoon of American soldiers are stopped by Frenzy, and then he proceeds to tear them apart with his drill hands. Soundwave blocks off communications in New York City, and so I was like, okay, New York City's occupied. How is this an occupation of Earth? The president, who I believe is Barack Obama at the time, tries to flee in Air Force One. He goes out on Air Force One for a better evacuation spot in case they attack DC. Starstream shoots down Air Force One, kills Obama. Cue the crab meme of Obama is dead. The U.S. Navy is crushed. The U.S. Air Force fails to stop the Decepticons because Soundwave has all their equipment jammed and stuff like that. New York City's taken. The American leadership is crippled. But besides the United States, the Decepticons spread out. Two countries they most notably attack, besides America, is China and Israel. Megatron himself seems to go over to Israel and just attack their tanks just for fun, like just to let off steam. So Israel gets ransacked by Megatron on a bad day, but China really gets the brunt of the occupation, besides New York City. Because, like, most of Beijing, I think most of Beijing gets killed by the Decepticons. It's either Beijing or Shanghai, but I have the book right here. But that's a significant portion of the population, and they're all killed pretty much by Skywarp. Just Skywarp. Skywarp wreaks havoc. A great portion of the depopulation of Earth that happens during the Decepticon occupation is because of Skywarp. It's Beijing. He kills just under half of the population of Beijing, which is a ridiculous amount of people. But the significant country that does not, or significant group of countries that do not face occupation from the Decepticons is the European Union. The European Union is left to their own devices. Part of this is because there is this person in the United Kingdom called Mercy Gale, who's a member of the Action Man program. And Mercy Gale, it's vague as to how she did it, but she somehow got her hands on, I believe, some sort of advanced ship technology and managed to negotiate with the Decepticons, and the Decepticons agreed to not touch the United Kingdom. The European Union was also left free. The European Union wasn't really bothered. Or the rest of the European Union, I should say. So Mercy Gale, I think she's working under the alias of Dr. X at this time, helps keep the Decepticons away from Europe and the United Kingdom. So, Russia is also fine, by the way. Russia's fine. So ultimately, the humans are like, the Decepticons are ripping America apart. China just got massacred. Overall, I believe 3 billion people die in the Decepticon occupation of Earth, which is a significant population number. To be clear, after 2009 onward is the IDW universe is essentially a post-apocalyptic universe, you know. But most of them's trying to pick up the pieces of this great destruction of Earth that happened with the Decepticons. So, Europe and Russia are really the only countries that are able to, or at least can mount a resistance against the Decepticons. Ultimately, there are some people like Spike Witwicky, who's in New York City, who's trying to get an experimental weapon that Skywatch made from Shockwave's cannon arm. It's a long story, but he gets that. But the European Union launched their strike on New York City around the same time the Autobots come back. So this is after over a year of occupation. The Autobots come back because they've rebuilt their forces. They come back to Earth and attack. The European Union also attacks at this time. And the European Union really doesn't do much against the Decepticons. But what happens is, I believe it's the European Union who ultimately decides to nuke New York City to kill the Cybertronians. Despite the fact that there are still many humans hiding in New York City, a lot of humans use the metro system in New York City to hide. The Decepticons send Astro Train to sort of go station to station and just transform in the middle of the subway station, causing everything to collapse on the people and they all die. But there are still people living in New York City, in hiding. But the European Union's sending over a plane with a nuclear bomb to wipe out the city to stop the Transformers. Here's the problem. The plane they send with the nuclear bomb is a Decepticon. It's Tankor. So Megatron sort of uses this as an opportunity to say to Optimus Prime that the humans you're fighting for aren't so innocent. They're going to kill so many of their own just to try to stop us. Which, by the way, the dude carrying the nuclear bomb is a Decepticon. Although that doesn't actually really play into the story too much. They do drop the nuclear bomb. Thundercracker actually stops the nuclear bomb because Thundercracker is a much more honor-based, and he doesn't like how the Decepticons just spent so much time massacring humans, and that's not what the Decepticons are about. In the IDW universe, the Decepticons came about more as a system to fight oppression, so Thundercracker doesn't like that. He goes AWOL to stop the nuclear bomb. But ultimately, Spike Witwicky takes a shot with the shockwave gun and hits Megatron right in the head. Then Optimus Prime uses the opportunity with Megatron reeling from a headshot to smack him with, I believe, his own fusion cannon, which knocks Megatron out of commission and forces the Decepticons to retreat from Earth. Which ends the Decepticon occupation of Earth. 3 billion people dead. United States and China crippled. It's Europe, the European area saved only by the machinations of Dr. X in the Action Man program. It's very interesting. G.I. Joe is completely traumatized by this because they really couldn't do anything. Word of God says that the Avengers died during this because technically the Avengers exist in the IDW universe. They crossed over with them in the new Avengers Transformers. So technically they exist. They're not their Marvel Avengers. These are, IDW native Avengers people. But they're never seen again. So the best, because it's a Marvel crossover property. But the best thing to assume is that the Avengers died in the Decepticon occupation. But yeah, that's really what I have to say about the Decepticon occupation of Earth. Humanity, while rebuilding, while they're, they've lost 3 billion people, they still have a lot more Cybertronian technology with them. By the way, the Decepticon occupation of Earth was really the big wake-up call to most people on Earth that the Transformers existed and were on Earth. Although there were little bits and pieces beforehand that some people might have known that Transformers were a thing. But there were pieces of Transformers left over, reverse engineered. Skywatch gets some mecha suits out of it. A lot of different weapons are created. Humanity really makes a quantum leap after the Decepticons leave because they have all this new technology. And yeah, that's the Decepticon occupation of Earth from the IDW universe. Thanks for watching. I know this isn't my typical quality, but you understand that I'm in a sort of a pickle with how much free time I have. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, join the Discord server, and have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Bip!